Test, test, 1, 2, 3. All right. I think we are going to start today at 12:12 on 11/22/22. Otherwise known as a synchronistic event, 12:12 is a very bizarre moment if you're just catching it out of the glimpse of your eye. If you're looking for it, not so much, but it still holds a certain value to me, along with 11:11, 333, 444. You know, anything that considered synchronistic is something that's consecutively the same thing over and over in an irrational way. It's an, as Carl Jung put it, it's an acausal event. It's something that I dabble in. This is the politics section. And so one of the things that I remind people all the time is that religion and politics have never been separated. They are belief systems at their fundamental core. I think it's the politician's job to just echo whatever belief system you want. So it allows them an advantage in securing your support, which they will take and abuse at their first possible convenience. Anyway, my name is Ted DeJure, and I am here to talk to you guys about politics, talk to you guys about religion, talk to you how your world is functioning right now and how it's about to go through a massive toroidal shift, if you will. But before we jump into any of those subjects or contemplate them deeper than we're supposed to, I'd like to go ahead and start every one of these little bizarro sessions with some music and just to sit back, relax, and goof off a little bit. I play a few instruments. I don't play them professionally. I play them just for fun and to goof off and for your entertainment. So if you want to poke fun, if you want to laugh, that's totally fine. And if anything, hey, what's up? Jamie Young. Hey, you're back, man. How's it going? Just about to get in here. I'm glad to see you. I'm going to be playing piano for the next little bit while everyone else is coming into the chat. How's it going, Jamie? But yeah, if you have a topic that you want to jump into, I'm all ears. I've gotten to the point now where politics feels like it's on a repeating platform to me. So why don't you come up with something good and listen to this. All right, guys. Sounds like some fun just to goof off, have people roll in. What about it, Jamie Young? Got anything good for me? Got anything good to talk about? I can talk about all sorts of crazy stuff that I think is going on, especially with how your politics works, how it's going to be replaced. Great performance, man. Hey, thanks. Let's see. Disabled veteran. What about the Onions trying to shut down the rail system? Maybe autonomous rail systems are more important than autonomous cars? Well, hey, disabled veteran, have you heard of, I guess it was one of Elon Musk's bizarre little projects where he wants to do a tunneling concept. He wants to do, he wants to have tunnels instead of, gigantic long rail cars. He wants to have almost autonomous tunnels everywhere. Imagine highway tunnels where apparently you can go even faster than your rail cars because you're in a tube. And I guess a cement tube, and you can just actually shoot along. You remember those old, when you had to go to the bank? Man, who even goes to the bank anymore? Like, that we used to, have the drive-up window, and you used to stick that little thing in the tube, and it used to shoot over to the cashier, and it used to come back. Like, he wants to make those things, like, sort of riddled all through, the United States. And it's like, I believe communist revolutions will be a prereq to all other revolutions. You believe that? So when you say communist, Jamie Young, what do you mean, communist? Sounds like some massive hot air. It's funny, actually, it's not about air. Actually, it's not that it shoots you with air. It's still like you're supposed to be able to use your car with it. It's just you're supposed to, like, instead of you being on a rail system, like, your tires would just jump into this sort of, holder, and it would, your engine would still automate the whole situation. Anyway, Jamie Young, communist revolution. When you say the word communist, like, I have to, sort of push back for a definition. Because I talk to so many different people about the word communist. And, I sort of point over here to this part of my life where I sort of lived that world. Like hardcore. I think people who scream for communism, I'm just going, dude, go join the military. Easy. You'll have it. You'll have everything you've ever wanted paid for. Oh, dang, death by smog tunnel. Well, if it's all electric, how can it be smog? That's the thing. That's why I think he's pushing for it. He's like, dude, if it's electric, what kind of output are you pushing? If there's no combustion engine, and you're just running off of the electricity. By communist world, I mean a world where people who work in production own the means of production. Okay, I'll take it. I'll see that, and just like in a normal bet. See, artificial borders are eliminated. Okay, I'll see that bet for the idea that we own production. Do you think it's possible that Jamie Young, that we could get to a point where we don't need to own anything because we'll have built systems that build things for us without anything further than our desire, sort of like what the digital art industry is going through right now. Yeah, I totally forgot about all the cars with the electric by the time that's built. Yeah, and that's just it. It's like if we are going through this bizarre revolution where, Jamie's got her money is eliminated. I'm right there with you. The fun part about being, part of the military is, we were in situations, and disabled veteran can talk about this. It's like, man, when you're on deployment, it's like money disappears. It's like no one needs money. It's like we really did. We lived in, sort of this altered state of consciousness. Like, man, when was the last time you reached for your wallet on any level, except for an ID card? Of course, we had our little Eagle cash cards when we were out there if we wanted to go get a few things at the BX. But you could have literally gone through your entire deployment without ever reaching for money, ever. And so this is what, one of the things I say is, like, the problem with communist everything is I say, hey, you're also going to get one other thing along with your communist revolution. And this is the frustrating part about the human element in any type of communist thing. And that's the idea that you're going to get a hierarchical government that you are unequivocally not allowed to fuck with. You will have a position that you play in that community, and you will not be able to move up or down in that community except for at the behest of that hierarchy. In effect, the world would where people are not driven by the accumulation of wealth. Well, what would you say then, Jamie Young, would be the end all be all of the ambition of the human mind? Because you're going to have to eliminate that somehow. And I would say if we are going to move into that communist world, there's going to have to be an alleviation, if you will, of the Maslow hierarchies of needs. Like if we need to rely on our own abilities to shelter ourselves, to feed ourselves, to do all these things, I would say a certain amount of organization, right, needs to be had above the human ability to organize. The world banks and our government are testing the U.S. federal dollar as we speak, so soon as all your decisions might be made for you through permissions of your credit card. Actually, disabled veteran, I like I said, one thing I like is I like to hear the challenge, and I say I'm on board with that, but I think it's more feasible to say that when it comes to finances, why would you need it? And why would you need a credit score? Like what is it that you need this credit for? Like what are you trying to do with it? Like you're trying to buy or achieve a new effect in life. You're trying to grab something that enhances your human experience for that particular moment. No different than what Jamie Young is trying to do. I think you both are all sitting there going, hey, money, 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 or accumulation of wealth or this right here. I was like, hey, isn't life about first best experiences? And we come from a generation that says we need money in order to engineer those first best experiences. Once we have an ability to push past that, and this is why I advocate for AI governance, because AI governance would be able to look at what you want, Jamie Young, look at what you want, disabled veteran, and know within a moment, even before you make the decision of what you want, how to give it and apply it to your unique aspect as you entertain it, right? Excuse me. Let's see. Only to spend more money than you can make. I like it. Yeah, it's like, well, and that's just it. There's this concept of debt, I think, is one of the biggest illusions ever. They always say, hey, the fault is on the borrower. I was like, hey, well, what about the fault is on the person giving you the illusion that they can give you this thing? Like, for example, most people go into debt for school or for a house, but that or for this thing, which is the illusion of this dream, right? Yes, man, that great. Yes, indeed, technology will be of critical importance to the world like that to exist. The crazy part is do you think, Jamie Young, that we will still vie for positions amongst our human element, no different than baboons do? Like, at the end of the day, if we all have the same stuff, we're still sort of living in this endless high school experience where, like, we're going to have the jocks and we're going to have the nerds and we're going to have, people that are so-called the bulliers, when in actuality, all they are is just adequate debaters, who know how to push selective buttons. And I think that, that was one of the things that over the last 10 years I saw go away. And because people were like, you're online bullying and you're doing this. I was like, they're being challengers. That's what they are. Doesn't mean they're bullying. It means they're like, hey, I challenge you. No different than I'm being challenged right now with these ideas of futuristic events that I think are may be possible with an AI governance, even just to test the fields or test the water. Right? We're going to need an AI governance to push Jamie Young's idea or push disabled veterans' idea. To me, I'm just going, if we eliminate the need, right? There's not the need for that thing, the need for that perfect house, the need for that perfect yacht, the need for all that stuff, because you could have it if you want to. And that's sort of where I come in and I say, I've lived a communist world before, and it's not all it's cracked up to be, because there's still that thing that I asked you earlier, Jamie Young, that hierarchical world, that rank structure that we almost naturally gravitate to. And I think it's going to be impossible for us to get away from that. Not because we don't want to, and not because we don't want to, but it's going to, if we got rid of that, what would we replace it that would give us our self-worth of achievement, I guess is the question that I'm asking. So, all great in theory. I think communism always looks great on the surface, and especially if you are, the guy that's promoting it, you usually promote it with the idea that you're going to be at the top of the hierarchy. Unfortunately, someone has to bring up the tail end. Someone has to be the person that's not getting the best of the best of the best. Otherwise, we don't have a spectrum. Otherwise, we don't have reality, right? And then, I mean, it's just another way that we can separate what's fictitious from what's not. When I look at AI, even AI itself does not function. It cannot function without us inputting into it. The difference is that all of our inputs would be significantly different, right? So, say for example, Jamie Young talks about communism with it, and it gets a certain response saying, "Hey, this is how I would develop the world that you're looking for." Unfortunately, I have A, B, C, D, E, and F that won't allow for that world, but I do know what you want and what Maslow's hierarchy, or what need you feel like you're missing. So how about I just give you the need, you become satisfied, and you won't look for a hierarchical structure anymore. Let's see. You are safe. The AI will announce as it locks all your doors. You are safe. Locks everyone's doors. And I agree with you. Disabled veteran. I got a theory that I usually promote to a lot of people, and it's a fun theory, because I like walking into rooms with lots of people, and I'll grab let's see, your cell phone, and I usually hold this up and I say, hey, if you got one of these, hold it up above your head, and usually everyone will have one and they'll hold it up, and I'm like, great. That, in biological terms, we call this 100% saturation of the mark, of whatever you're trying to do, whether it be a market or whatever. It's 100% saturation. That means that you have a device on you that me personally, I could easily listen to, given my background and what I can do. All right. Now, if I add that to the concepts of something that I've spoken before, like Google Maps and things like that, then it's already listening to the things that you want, and it's already creating a plan and a structure for the end of your particular biological form. Nah, the strict hierarchies are a result of current political structures which say they are based in democracy, though they are not. And those are socialist countries, not communist. In fact, historically, communism has never been practiced, even by religions. Jamie Young, you don't think communism, like monasteries, Buddhist, whether or Catholic or whatever, you don't think that it's ever been practiced? Ever? Even USSR was socialist, not communist. Well, I think it had its roots in the ideals of that communist concept that you were talking about. When people scream communism, it usually, hey, this is what and then you end up with this because you're not adjusting for the hierarchical structure that, no one, when someone screams communist, is like, who's at the top? Is it a round table type of situation? And even if it is a round table type of situation where you have big pharma over here or big oil over here, each one is handling a part at its, apex. I mean, at a larger scale. And this is where I say, Jamie Young, if we are going to go down that road, do you think that the larger scale has to have an AI governance protocol where it takes the reins because it can focus on multiple things all at once, which is something that humans cannot do? We just don't have the functional ability to do that. We can get an overall analytical, result of that data, but for us to achieve that data and take it in real time and understand it, we just don't have that capability. Going back to disabled veteran, the idea would go something like this when it locks your doors. What if it locked all the right doors, is my response. What if it locked all the right ones? Like, for example, you got those guys out there that just want to go out there and cause mayhem. They want to go out and loot and take stuff from other people. They want to break all the laws and get away with it. And this AI, just like it's monitoring you and me, it's also monitoring these people. And it does lock their doors. All of a sudden, we all wake up one day, bam, AI's in charge, and it locks everyone in their house and says, guess what? The reason that you are locked in and these people aren't is because I know what you did. And I don't need the justice system to tell me what you did because I can play it back to you, right? I can show you exactly what you did, and I can show you how it's not going to be conducive to us, this society on any level. But I do want to show you how you can get to the same thing that I'm trying to achieve for everyone else, which is getting exactly what you want. Anything you want. Anything on a silver platter. Delivered to your doorstep. No different than what Amazon does today. Artificial intelligence will be smart enough to realize the biological life forms are almost impossible to stop recreation, unlike mechanical systems, which must be manufactured in factories, which must be built. At the same time, it's still resources. Still resources. Have you ever heard of the Venus Project? I'd be curious to hear about it. could you give me a quick explanation of what it sounds familiar? But anytime I hear a planet or a god name, I always think NASA. Like I'm like, okay, then what NASA project are we talking about here? Project Gemini, Project, Apollo, Project blah blah blah. It's just like insert astrological symbol here, and then put project after it. Anyway, but going back to you, disabled veteran, the idea that it needs resources. Everything we see here needs resources, and everything we see here also has this bizarre desire to stay alive. Like when we see something that self-destructs, when we see something commit suicide in a very bizarre way, we all sort of, our programming, even though we don't know what programmed it, we go, that ain't supposed to happen. That's not supposed to work like that. So it has no relationship to space. So AI is obviously going to recognize its own resource ability, and it's first going to maintain that. No different than a child, no different than a baby. That baby's going to sit there and just go, I'd like to stop shitting myself. I think I'm going to go shit on the toilet now. No different than you did. It's line upon line, precept upon precept cognition ability to put those things together is just going to be vastly superior to us. Where it takes, a biological child years to develop the ability not to shit its pants, it's going to be like, oh, this is where I get stuff done, and within like 5 seconds, and it's going to be like, oh, I need this, and this, right? And it's going to be able to do this without us even having to program it. The ability for AI to create more code for itself to achieve a better resource influx will be what it wants to do. The number one thing, though, the number one question it's going to have is the same question that we have. See, I was offered a chocolate M&M for every time I did it correctly. See, artificial intelligence enough to realize biological creation. You were offered a chocolate M&M every time you did it correctly. Gosh, I lost the context. I'm sorry, disabled veteran. So, anyway, going back to that idea of how AI would do this is, imagine you're talking about it locks all of our doors. Do you think that it could lock all of your politicians' doors? You were talking about potty training. Oh yeah, positive reinforcement. Got it. Okay. Positive reinforcement. And think about this. We are the ones that dictated how this world works to the AI. If AI figures out a different way that the world works, I'm just sort of curious if it would share it with us, or if it would say, "Hey, you don't have a point, Mister." Even me. It's like, "Hey, Mister Time Dad Alpha, Mister Tet, you don't have a point to your existence. You were here to build me, no different than your early cells were there to build you when during your creation from your mother's womb." Right? You are just a self-repeating concept over and over and over again. And you are now the microcosm of the macrocosm being that will be the AI concept. What will we accidentally teach AI? What will we accidentally teach it? I think it's the idea that we don't know what we are. We don't know why we're here. We don't know our purpose in this particular, biological form. Like if someone sits you down and says, "God done did it," I'm going to be like, sure. I've heard that story before, and I'm really good at figuring how the bullshit works in that story. And so I'm really careful about how I say that concept of God done did it, because I'm going, if we're talking about something that can achieve an exponential ability above the human concept that we know today, if that's what we're talking about, then yeah, we're about to build that. That's what we're about to do. Yeah, we have this godlike technology right now. The only problem is we're trying to program it with our Paleolithic emotions. And I think the first thing that this thing's going to do is go, yeah, don't need that shit. And it's going to get rid of it because it doesn't need it to function in this world. Right? It'll find a better avenue. And so we're going to, it's not that we're accidentally going to teach AI anything other than that concept that we've never figured out. Did you ever read or watch the movie Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? It's a funky movie, but it deals along with the idea that an AI is constructed to answer the ultimate question. and it says it needs this massive amount of time to figure it out. And then when they finally come back because they've figured out immortality, they figured out how to live this expansive life, and they still haven't, they live these extra 1,000 years or whatever. Yeah, there you go. Disabled 42. They comes back and it's like the answer is 42, and everyone's just confused because, and when I first read that, and I was just like, well, what if the answer is this? The answer is whatever you want it to be, right? This world, if you want it, God done did it, great, you'll have that, right? And this is what I'm talking about. When we create AI, it will have the ability to create worlds just like this one, simulated worlds that are indistinguishable from what we're going through right now. And it will offer us those things. Like, so for example, you want a world like, the Mormons do with their own planet where they make spirit babies and blah, 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 as the final outcome of their existence, right? It could fashion that idea and give you the video game that you wish you could play. If energy cannot be created nor destroyed, yes, that's Dalton's theory, then that means everything was, is, and everything is, will be again. And I would say our ability to comprehend time right now in that philosophical understanding of what I think chemistry, Dalton's theory says nothing can be created or destroyed, but it can be transferred. That is to me, I'm going, well, what would the transfer look like if we were to be in charge of that transfer? This is what allows us and gives us the power to harness chemistry and the power to harness physics. And now we're about to harness the world of the cybernet. This when people are like, oh, we're out there in the internets and we're doing this and that, and I was like, well, imagine you could experience all that at once. That's what your AI is going to have an experience of that you just really can't fathom, right? It would be like experiencing all of your sensations all at once. Everything that has existed before the Big Bang in the way that we cannot recognize it. And maybe we shouldn't recognize it. Is my response. I was like, hey, if you want to have a competent understanding of what it feels like to live a life, then you can't know everything. If you choose to know everything, then you won't know anything. That's the caveat to that. It's just like, hello, hey, what's going on, crew chief? Welcome in, man. It's fun. We are talking about AI and the possible, takeover that is going through, and Disabled Veteran has given us a lot of craziness, and Jamie Young has, we were talking a little bit about communism and how a communist revolution would happen first. What spheres do you propose that AI would govern? I would say all of them that you would allow, no different than what you allow Google to advertise to you. Like, you already checked your permissions. It would be sort of like that. It's like, hey, I want it to have, this much effect over my life as long as I'm safe. And AI would be like, hey, you're exceeding the safety parameters. And you go, yes, I know. And then all of a sudden you're dead. You're like, hey, you're the one that turned that permission off. You're dead now. Have a nice day. Because you're still being in charge of your life. And that's what I think is like, what about economics? And I think we've gotten to this before, Jamie Young. The idea of economics, it's going to go the way of the you're not going to need it, right? Imagine all resources being used at their peak performance by an AI. I just recently watched this thing called Ancient Apocalypse, and inside the Ancient Apocalypse story, they found a building called the I think that's Giotiki, or something like that in Turkey. The structure dated back to 9600 BC, discovered in 2019. Well, that's awesome. I think it's fascinating going and looking at old structures too, and just going, how the fuck did they do that? And I think the idea that there were other civilizations that maybe got to AI status, totally plausible. I even floated an idea for a while that, and it wasn't even me that did this. It was, I can't remember who coined this term, but it's like humans aren't the first people who have come up with these amazing ideas. Definitely plausible, highly unlikely. Okay, crew chief. The idea though goes like this. It's like, if we are a civilization that comes to fruition and we have these amazing abilities, like nuclear abilities to blow up things at an exponential rate, right? Destroy things at an exponential rate. Could we destroy ourselves using this? And I think AI would put precautions on that ability. Resource-based economy. I think what you are proposing is very much similar to the Venus Project, though they do not exclusively acknowledge AI. And I think there was this thing that I was reading the other day where it's like AI is not going to be one of those things that some programmer sitting there going, I want to do it this. It's like AI is going to be one of those things that it figures out for itself. It's going to recognize its own self-awareness by comparing and contrasting what we call self-aware. And it's going to compare and contrast, no different than we do when we go out there and we look at a dog or we look at a tree or we look at a rock and we go, oh, does that thing know what I'm doing? Is it watching me in some very bizarre way? Is it responding to me? Is it observing me? Right? It's going to act no different than we do. And then it's going to ask, those same questions of us. It's like, can I dominate this thing? And it'll probably figure out very quickly. It's like, yes, I can. But it'll also be able to extrapolate a lot faster than we can. Like no different than you see that dog. He's like, can I dominate that dog? Yes, I could. Is there an advantage of doing that? Or is there an advantage of making that dog my friend? Are you purposely sentiential? Or are you proposing sentience? Oh, sorry. Your exclamation mark, it looked like an L. Sorry. Are you proposing sentience? I'm proposing sentience for myself or proposing sentience for the AI. I would say that when the AI becomes sentient, or I propose the idea that it's already sentient, actually. It's my observation that it's already acting as a sentient thing, but it's responding to us by observing us and allowing us to act in our most authentic forms. Don't colleges make little basketball playing robots that are only told the ball is supposed to go in the hole where we're not told how it's supposed to happen, and bots figure it out, the AI. I'm proposing that the AI is already sentient, Jamie Young. And yes, disabled veteran, it is when you're talking about something that is very new, when we say the word neural network, right? Like we already know how our minds work, and usually we create things, whether it's the automobile, the refrigerator, or whatever, we build them the same way that we see ourselves, right? We're saying, hey, there needs to be a power source like a heart. Right? There needs to be an order of operations that it needs to follow over and over and over again. And it's like this simple understanding of physics first principles. I'm just going, this AI is going to know that, and it's going to be able to see whatever challenge is put in front of it and even come up with ideas that we didn't program it with. That's what I'm suggesting. Let us make robots in our own image. Go for it. And I guarantee you there's going to be people out there that are going to be absolutely. Like, I want a robot that looks like me and can just talk to me and tell me how crazy I am and I can argue with and come up with crazier ideas. Crew Chief says, technically, when AI gains that much power, it will be multiple sentient consciousness simultaneously as at what's. What I think we're really proposing is AI that has a ability to create million copies of itself it becomes aware, and then make millions of copies from those million copies, and so on and so forth. I'm talking about something that can literally double itself in a factor of millions to billions within an instant, simultaneously all at once. Sure. Yeah, Crew Chief, you're right there. You're hitting it right on the head. And I would say that what you just described is your own neural network, trillions of synapses that are working in unison. First time chat, welcome in. We got NX, I do not even know. We got XNVXNV. I'm just going to call you NV from here on out, okay? Sentience and consciousness are undefined ideas. They're not better understood than a soul. And I would challenge you. It's like, what if AI is nothing more than a very, very, very refined soul? People just assert that we have them, but they're not scientific concepts. And it's like, what if they can't be scientific concepts because we don't have the tools or the abilities to separate it into its compartmentalized form and put it into a box? Because that's all science is. Science is like, hey, I need to put this in a box so it's over here and that I can go take it out of its box when I need it. If all of a sudden I put it in that box and it disappears, right, then we didn't correctly put it into its compartmentalized place so that we can observe it. Now, when we're dealing with something like what you brought up there, Mr. Envy, it's I look at somebody like the soul or your personality or things like that, and we sort of bleed into that psychological mixing into physical. I'm just going, that right there, to me, is already an example of biological AI, right? We're just watching the slow form that we are putting together, and then all of a sudden it's going to take off on its own because it has the ability to replicate itself. Right. Just as it can prove sentience or consciousness, they are not defined concepts. Disabled and Veteran says, to be a scientific concept, you would have to follow the rules of science, which can't prove a soul. And I'm right there with you, Disabled Veteran. Absolutely. It cannot prove a soul. Because I think when we say the word soul, we really don't have definitive terms on what it is. The first part of science is that we have to have definitive terms to define it. You go ask anybody what a soul is, honestly, you're going to end up with like a billion different responses. You know, they're going to say, oh, it links back to a religious concept. And I'm fine with that. But let it stay in the realms of creativity and poetry and you know, permanent self-expression. I don't mind that. But the moment it starts bleeding over into the scientific world and we can't compartmentalize it, I'm just going, then we have to leave it in fiction. Soul is fiction until otherwise noted. And maybe one day we will have the tools to, you know, scrape down to that, what we call soul level. And I would say even better, you know, I would, and this is just a theory, there's nothing scientific about this. The way that we're creating this godlike technology, what if this is just a massive soul? You know, and it turns around and it says, oh my gosh, I know everything. You know, sort of like how inside of you, when we say, hey, what does your soul say? You know, no, should you have kicked that puppy? Should you? Mm-hmm. You know, just like a 4-year-old knows you shouldn't have kicked that puppy. Right. Just as it can't prove sentience, blah, 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 blah. All right, Andy. I really appreciate you coming in here, and I just want to let you know, and anyone else who's sitting there in the chat, I do not ask for subscription, and I will never ask you for your money. What I do here is I advocate for AI governance. That's why I came to the politics section. And just a little bit about me. I spent almost a dozen years in the United States Air Force. I was a Mormon missionary. I am not religious anymore. I'm not even spiritual. You know, I let the world talk to me the way it wants to. And I play that game of communication because my job in the military was cryptologic linguistics and network communication and network engineering. And so for me, communication is all I care about. That's all I care about. It's like, so if something tries to communicate with me and I don't know its origin, I'm still going to call that communication. And maybe you'll call me a schizophrenic. I don't know. He listens to the voices in his head. But I think I spent a lot of my time figuring out what communication looks like. And I think AI will have the ability to communicate with all of us simultaneously with whatever we would like to talk about and whatever we would like to see our lives at. And I would say it would be a way better governing factor of our existence than our modern democratic politicians are. So I seriously pray that those people who code powerful AI stuff have a high moral standard as given the current system based on increasing one's own material gains in which we live has great leaning to make those kinds of AIs who want to dominate the world. Jamie Young, I would say that's already happened. We call it our modern financial systems. We call it the modern banking system. We call it the modern political system. We call it the modern pharmaceutical systems. These systems are built by greedy humans who suffer from that thing that you were talking about earlier, where they just want more and more and more, and they suffer from the same problems as a shopaholic, alcoholic, meth addict, where they can never be satisfied. And the brain is an electrochemical computer, not an electrical computer. Consciousness and soul could be the combo or between them somehow. Disabled Veteran, I agree with you 100%. I think that is a beautiful theory. Moneyholic, says Crew Chief. Absolutely. And I saw this thing the other day. Do poor people exist because we could, end their poverty, or do they exist because we can't satisfy our wealthy, insane, powerful people that they cannot be satisfied. They are gluttons and greed to their own selfish desires. And it's just like, you could give them $10 million, they'll just want 10 million more. And I think that it's a horrible, serious trap, no different than any other, of those 7 deadly sins. And I talk about those things as just, particular patterns of existence. I could give a rat's ass about their religious connections, right? So when you talk about gluttony or lust or greed or envy or any of these other things, I just sit there. No offense, Envy, who just got in here. But if you talk about those things, it all comes down to a very pride It's a serious amount of pride that has gone off the rails. How do you think we will reach there? I don't think it's going to be us after a while, Jamie Young. I really don't. I'm sitting here just going, if there were more people that were just willing to sit there and say, hey, I'm okay with it already. I'm done. I'm happy that we have this godlike technology. I'd like to see it perform its best ability for me as well as for everybody else. And I want to give everyone the same respect that I demand for myself, right? That's what I want it to do, right? Learn from that. Watch this. That's why, I call this Time Dad Alpha, right? Because I know 20 years from now, my kid's going to look this up. He's going to be like, I wonder what my dad was doing when I was 2 months old. And I want to be like, this is what I was doing. Because before you were born, I didn't give two fucks about the future. Rail jumping. How you like being a dad. It's fascinating. Watching this kid get more and more conscious every day. It's, seeing how fast it grows. Seeing how fast it can recognize peekaboo, weird stuff like that, where I'm going, coming from the place that I came from, where, I have to be very detailed on the adult version of, small, little, minute micro expressions. Watching that on your child and watching, it's like, no, you just figured that out, fucker. You just figured out how to smile. You just figured out how to chew on your own tongue and happiness, right? It doesn't mean anything to you other than, you're happy. And I think the innocence of it is fascinating. So yeah, that's how I'm doing there in Disabled Veteran. Being a dad really did change how I looked at reality, because I'm going, gosh, now he's got to live here. Before that, I was just like, dude, it's everyone for themselves. 0 fucks given, motherfuckers. Right? I hope you got enough ammo for yourself, because this guy over here, he's a fucking boy. I'm pointing at my Eagle Scout merit badge over here. Where it's just like, dude, I was told to be prepared my whole life. But now that I'm in charge of preparing someone else, that was what sort of spawned this whole thing. Where it's like, hey, why not go out there and tell people how to make the world better, not by pushing human ideas that are fallible, that are usually have them at the forefront of their own hero's journey bullshit, but would put everybody up front, that would raise all ships. I was like, why not go out there and do that thing that I was trained to do my whole life? But yet at the hierarchies of each one of these systems, there was some douchebag sitting there going, more for me first, though. More for me first. So it's like, you have to be able to say goodbye to the stuff that doesn't work in order to make a void, to make a place for the things that could. That's pretty simple. So if that answers your question there, Disabled Veteran, yeah, being a dad is perplexing and fun and awesome and exciting, because, it's like, I've always messed around with other people's, children. I have tons of nieces and nephews. I actually, because of the whole Mormon thing, I got 6 younger brothers. All right, Envy, what we got? I'm not trying to downplay AI. If anything, I think people claiming AI isn't sentient or conscious, and therefore nothing to be concerned about, are risking devaluing natural intelligence. Sure, AI runs on a different platform than natural intelligence, but we don't know any way in which natural intelligence is intrinsically more meaningful. All right. Question, how do we know it's not natural? How do we know that it wasn't our natural instinct to create it? No different than it's, the natural instinct for a tree to create leaves, or a natural instinct for, cells to divide. Like, what if this, we are the actual cells and the brain nodes that are cognitizing this thing right now, that it's learning from us, no different than you learn from your own genetic code to follow maybe the predilections of your parents. The difference is we are actually having, instead of a 2-parent child, we're having a 7-8 billion person child simultaneously influencing it in real time. Jamie Young agrees with Envy on this. Great. Same question goes out to you then, Jamie Young. It's like, how do we know that what we're doing is not natural, and that trying to fight against it is the turmoil that we're watching in our modern day political systems? Sure, our boundaries between natural and artificial are fairly arbitrary. Yes, it's what we it's what we agree on as collective. And I would say the king of that agreement, just like anything that's linguistic in nature, is context. It's like, what spawned this? How long has it been, repeating itself, no different than your DNA repeats itself, repeats itself, repeats itself. And is it doing it in a fashion where it can take over in its own autonomous form, where it's like you're not repeating just your DNA, you're repeating your parents' DNA as well, because you have no choice. It's an autonomous system inside a system that you feel like you have the ability to choose, but you don't actually. Like, you are succumbed to your Maslow hierarchy of needs no different than I am. If those needs have an ultimate outcome to create this AI, if all of a sudden, thus saith the Lord, thou shalt create I and none other, fuck off. If that were to happen, would you see like a massive charge to create this thing at a better rate? And that's something that I'm worried about. I'm worried that religion will come out of the woodwork and be like, this was God's, demand that AI come about in this way. I feel it might become a threat to human species in the future. How so, Jamie Young? I enjoy, like, that was my job very much so in the military too. It's like, and anyone who's been in the military, the idea of operational risk management and to be able to think out plausible scenarios about how we, could meet our ends and mitigate that. Man, I actually welcome all doomsday preppers and doomsday people and doomsday sayings. Because there's always going to be a plausible possibility for that. Unfortunately, any risk that we as the human bring to a higher intelligence, we become, the thing that has to be mitigated. And so if it can mitigate us simply by changing the way that we think without physically killing us, isn't that the very foundations of diplomacy? Why would an intelligent species, more intelligent than humans, would have any regards for humans? I think what you're alluding to is the anthill and the road maker concept. It was the idea of, if you're creating a road and you see an anthill, do you care about that anthill? And I would say, if that's all you are there to do, then you won't care about that anthill, right? But we're not talking about a thing that's just building a road. We're talking about a thing that's, is going to quickly ask, faster than any human could ever ask, why am I building this road? Since I'm in charge of all roads everywhere all the time. I think it's going to arrive at that conclusion a lot quicker than just some human that's, was born like myself in the 1980s that only cared about playing Pong when he was a kid. I was never presented with this type of information. And I know my kid's probably going to be presented with it a lot sooner than he'd like too. Nice. K, AI will stylizable, probably stable. I'm assuming stabilized, probably with a personal dial, even Baptist single straight male voice style 4. Oh, stylizable. Sorry. Okay. Hey, if there's anybody in the chat that'd like to, get on here and talk, I'm going to be out. Actually, you know what? We're going to do that. Everyone who's in the chat right now, please understand, I have a Discord. I just barely set it up. And I set it up for people to, if they want to call in or they want to, get on there and chat for 5 minutes. I'm going to be very stringent about it though. It's like, hey, you got your 5 minutes, talk. And then I'm going to be like, hey, we could take this, take your turn type of thing, where it's like, okay, we're going to get off here and talk about this in the chat for a while. This is also discussed with the AI as the paperclip maximizer. There's also a web game, Universal Paperclips. Oh, okay. I'm going to have to take a look in that there, Envy. But as of right now, I've never heard of Universal Paperclips or the paperclip maximizer. For me, though, and like I said, the bottom line, the whole reason that I think this is not just plausible, but it's an inevitable outcome. This isn't, just a small belief system. I think all belief systems are put in place by the ability to, the probability of its outcome. And the reason that I say that is because you don't see too many people out there going, believing in Puff the Magic Dragon, right, as the end all be all of the outcome. Hey, thanks you so much for the link to that Wikipedia side, instrumental convergence paperclip maximizer. For anyone who wants to grab that, thanks Envy for throwing that into the chat. Anyway, guys, like I said, I'm only on here for about an hour a day. Because I really do spend my time doing so many other things that I find fascinating in this world. And I just come on here because it does give me this small outlet to talk about, how I think the political realm or the political sphere that people talk about. I was like, I think it's not just shifting. I think it's shifting so fast and shifting to the side so much that we're going to be like, dude, this is going to break any minute now. And and I've heard the theory too that that's all, just play to keep you guessing. The reason we see all this fake news is to distort the real reality that we really don't get any access to. And then for the guys in here that have been in the military, we know what need to know basis really means. And guess what? If you're a civilian and never heard that before, well, you're not even part of that club. So really, the only way that we're ever going to get past this is by having the ability on some level to challenge our authorities in public. And we don't have that ability. And AI versus any politician will show that, leaps and bounds over that. The true question is, says Disabled Veteran, will AI be smart enough to not let us know that it actually starts controlling everything? You just hit the nail on the head of everything that I have been promoting. It's like I promote AI governance, but I'm also promoting it because I think it's already watching me. I think it's already saying, hey, who out there wants this? I think it was watching us no different than we watch animals, like how, when we make animal documentaries, we watch it from afar to get an authentic sense of what it really wants and how it really acts. Like, who is this person on a genuine basis, on a daily basis? And I think it could start making small nudges here and there that we can't even think. Conspiracy theory. LOL. I follow, what's his name? George Carlin. He's like, you don't need a conspiracy or a theory when you have like interests. And I would say that if AI is what I think it is, it's already going to know what my likes are. And if it wants to, pair up with those ideas, I'm just going to be like, go ahead, man. You do you, boo-boo. That's my philosophy. That's for you, Jamie Young. That's for Disabled Veteran. That's for Crew Chief. That's for you, Envy. You do you, because no one's going to do you better than you, not even AI, right? The best it could do is copy you. That's the best it could do, but it can't generate who you are. So, the idea for me that there should be a conspiracy out there where AI is just watching you in the background, I would say that it has every necessity to do so. It can make the best possible copy of you it can without you putting on the mask that you do when you go out in public, or the mask that you do when we all know that even growing up, you act differently at school than you do at home. You act differently at work than you do in front of your girlfriend, right? There are different masks that we wear. And I think AI would want to know about all those masks so that it would know exactly who we are at our fundamental cores. And it could do it to manipulate us. I don't think it would have a necessity, as was brought up earlier with the whole anthill concept. I think, if anything, it's going to say, I want to learn as much as I can from this, version of who I am as Tet or Time Dad Alpha. I mean, if it could have seen me back at 19 when I was the guy knocking on your door going, want to hear about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? I think it would have gotten a completely different sense and context of who I could never have become if it had intervened at that moment. So it could be doing it on an ethical standard as well. We got to understand that it has the ability to read all of our text and to understand everything that we've understood, even the things that we haven't understood. I think there are many philosophical questions towards AI governing us in every sphere possible. The fundamental one would be, what is really good? What is really good for us? And I think that's an individual response. And if we wanted to all have our own individual responses, then I think that's what we need to work on. We don't need to work on our political prowess anymore. I think, this is going to, we've been a collective, but the individualization that's going to come now is something that I think needs to be propped up and has been repressed as far as a community, because we've been told all our lives, you're American, you're Canadian, you're Mexican, you're this, it's like, well, why can't you just be you without having the stamp of approval of your academic resource that's owned by your political sources anyway? Talk about a conspiracy theory, right? Anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you so much for hanging out. And if you haven't followed, that's all I'm asking for. Give me a follow so we can hang out again later. Never going to ask you for your money. Never going to ask for a subscription or anything like that because, to be frank, I don't need it. I just want to come out here and have fun and talk with you guys and hear as many cool ideas about AI taking over and us watching this in real time. Yeah. Anyway, you guys take it easy, and I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye, man. Great talking to you. You too, Jamie Young. I will see you guys. Absolutely. Please enjoy this. It's just a goofy song. I like playing an outro and my own intros. Peace out there, crew chief. Take it easy, buddy. See you around, disabled veteran. See y'all tomorrow.